There's a lot of information floating around about how you can manage your money better and how you can be more financially confident. But just because a piece of advice sounds good or it makes sense does not necessarily mean it's the right advice for you. Video, we are going to look at 5 pieces of financial advice that are so common, but depending on your personal unique circumstances, you might want to avoid. But before we dive into the tips, if you are new here, do consider subscribing. On this channel, we talk a lot about personal finance and money, different ways that you can live a more frugal life, but also how you can improve your entire financial picture. First piece of advice that you may want to ignore is the advice that you should pay off debt before saving. Now, this is something that I have heard so many times when I'm reading different blogs on personal finance or even when I'm watching videos here on YouTube. And on the surface, I completely understand why many experts recommend paying off debt before saving money. Debt is expensive, especially high interest debt. So the longer you keep these balances, the more money you're going to waste. Now, if you're only looking at the math aspect, yes, this advice makes sense. However, the issue I have is I feel that it also can set you up to go deeper into debt. And the reason why this piece of advice can backfire is because when you are pouring all your extra money into paying off debt, there is no cushion to handle things that will come up. And it's not really a matter of if things come up, but rather a matter of when. So whether it's a car repair or home repair, if you don't have the money, more than likely you're going to reach in, you're going to pull out a credit card, and you're going to dig yourself deeper into debt. Now, of course, at the end of the day, everyone has to really decide what strategy is going to work best for them. And if you have high interest debt, you may feel that it is better to get rid of this debt and then concentrate on saving money. But one strategy that could work is pay off your debt and save money at the same time, at least until you have some type of cushion available. So if you have an extra $500 every month, maybe put $250 into savings, $250 towards your debt. And then once your savings account gets to about $1,000 or maybe $2,000, then start allocating all your extra money toward debt repayment. And then once the debt is paid off, put that money back into savings so you can build your 6 to 12 month emergency fund. Another piece of financial advice that you might choose to ignore is the idea that renting is a waste of money. Now, I am a homeowner and I enjoy owning, and I understand why some people push the whole ideal that owning is better, because as an owner, you earn equity, and as a renter, you know that's money that you're never going to get back. But at the end of the day, owning is not for everyone, and renting is not a waste of money if it suits your lifestyle. When considering your housing situation, it is so important to really think about how much responsibility you want to take on, because even though buying a house will give you an opportunity to earn equity, home ownership, it is expensive. Even if buying a property will result in more square footage and maybe a lower monthly payment, there are other costs you have to consider. Many mortgage programs nowadays require a down payment, you have closing costs, and you have maintenance and repairs that are ongoing. Some people enjoy the luxury of being able to call up a landlord whenever there's a problem or a broken appliance, and you have some people that want to keep their money in the bank rather than pour it all into a home purchase, because there are countless stories of people who nearly empty their bank accounts in order to buy a house, and as a result they don't have anything left when things do come up, which ends up driving them into debt. And don't even get me started on the headaches of trying to sell a house. Some people are fortunate where they put their house on the market and within 30 days somebody has snatched it up, but for a lot of people it takes a while for them to sell their house. And if you're the type of person who you enjoy moving around, or maybe you're not 100% sold on an area, renting might be the better option. Another piece of financial advice that you could probably ignore is that you shouldn't use a credit card. Now, I have to say, I totally get it. When I hear people make this statement, I understand where they are coming from. When you use a credit card, there's interest you have to pay, and there's also the risk of debt. But instead of making such broad statements and trying to apply it to everyone, I think it's only fair to acknowledge that there are a lot of people who know how to manage their credit cards responsibly, and they do it each and every month. And for anyone who doesn't know, responsible use, it refers to only charging what they can afford, paying off their balances in full, and by not carrying a large balance from month to month, they can then avoid high interest charges. And we can't deny the obvious. There are benefits to using a credit card. For a lot of people, a credit card is a way to establish credit and rebuild their credit history. There's also an opportunity to get cash back with a credit card. And using credit can also be safer than using a debit card. I learned this firsthand when somebody got a hold of my debit card and went on a $500 shopping spree to Walmart.com about 10 years ago. Now, I eventually got my money back, but it did take 7 days, and I had to transfer money from my savings to my checking in order to cover some bills that I had. Now, for somebody who maybe doesn't have money in savings yet, I mean, having somebody get a hold of your debit card and cleaning out your account, that could really create problems and prevent you from paying some of your bills. So again, the key word here is responsible use. For those who feel it's too much temptation, then no, you probably should not have one in your wallet. But if you don't have those type of issues, then using a credit card has its benefits. Another piece of financial advice to ignore is that you shouldn't talk about money. And to be clear, I am not talking about sharing specific details about how much money you have in the bank or how much money you earn, because I do feel that those details are nobody's business but your own. But whether you grew up in a household where talking about money was taboo, or maybe you just adopted this notion as you became older, I do feel that when it comes to this ideal that we should not talk about money, people take it a little too far, to the point where they don't discuss anything even remotely related to finances. But a lot of the mistakes that people make with money, especially when they're young, have a lot to do with lack of knowledge. If they didn't talk about money at home with their parents, and they don't talk about money with their friends, it's like they don't know what they're doing wrong. So even when they think they're on the right path, they can actually be going in the wrong direction. And what's interesting is that friends talk about everything. They talk about relationships, they talk about career, they talk about fashion, but yet many don't talk about money. And that's something that I do feel needs to change. And again, I'm not talking about sharing the nitty-gritty details of your personal finances, but I do think it's a good idea for friends to ask questions and trade information. Can you give me some budgeting tips? What savings accounts offer the best return? How are you able to pay off your debt so fast? Asking questions, expanding your knowledge, getting tips from people who know how to manage money is really the only way to know whether you're doing something right or wrong. Another piece of financial advice to ignore is that you should never buy a new car. Now, when I purchased my last car, I bought it a year old, and I got an amazing deal. And from that point, I was sold on always buying used. And I was so excited, and I became one of those people. I would tell anyone who would listen, don't buy a new car, just wait at least a year. You'll be able to get what you want and more and pay a lot less. But once I came down off my high, I had to acknowledge that I did have a unique situation, because I was fortunate in that I was actually able to find the exact car that I wanted used. And a lot of people are not that fortunate. If you're going out to buy a car, you may have an ideal of what you want, and unfortunately, if you wait to get a used car, you may not be able to get exactly what you want. Now, yes, new cars do depreciate as soon as you drive them off the lot, so if you buy used, you'll be able to save money. But if you can't find what you want used and you really don't want to settle, buying a new car doesn't always have to be a bad buy. The interest on a new car is usually cheaper, and if you have great credit, you might even qualify for 0% interest, and you can also take advantage of rebates and other incentives that can also drive down the price of the car. And if you wait until the end of the year, you might also be able to get a good deal, because at this point, the dealer is usually ready to get all of last year's models off the lot. So there you have it. That's my list of common financial advice, which, depending on your circumstances, you might be better off ignoring. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And again, on this channel, we talk a lot about personal finance. So if you like videos like this and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. I post every weekend and sometimes during the week. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you in a few days.